Hey, welcome back to For What It's Worth. I am just taking this video to do something different. I just listened to the entire. It's like a good at least an hour of Aaron Fochman's prophecy update, eschatology update on his channel, and I've shared it with a few people. But I know that, like anything, life gets in the way. It takes too long. You're not going to listen to the whole thing, or you're going to get interrupted and forget about it. So what I did was I chopped up a couple of pieces that I want to just kind of to distill. I would still recommend watching the whole thing, but here's a couple of clips, and I'll just give a little commentary in between. But if you don't, if you, I'll put a link to the whole thing in my bio here, or in my comment section area. But I would recommend you go watch the whole thing when you can. Until then, here's a little breakdown that I think will be
If you
helpful.
care about eschatology, you are going to want to learn these prophetic books. Psalm 83 is what is going on right now. That's Israel clearing out the terrorist groups that are immediately surrounding them, okay? All you need to do is look at where Edom, the Ishmaelites, Moab, the Hagarenes, Ammon, Amalek, the Philistines, all of these people, all you need to do is look at where they are on a map and then figure out what terrorist groups are there, and you're going to find ISIS, Hezbollah, Hamas, all the historical Muslim Brotherhood terrorist groups that have been a thorn in the side of Israel since we overthrew the Ottoman Empire, pretty much. That's when they started their initial movements, and then Arab nationalism. It's all the guys who've been trying to attack Israel, minus the states of Syria and Egypt and Iraq. Okay. These are the terrorist groups. Israel's clearing them out right now. So if you were to be raised in the 90s and you back when churches would actually teach on eschatology, this would be the going belief, is that something's going to happen where Israel is going to win over their surrounding neighbors in a big way and feel very secure, and then Gog Magog is going to happen. That's what we see happening right now. And so you go from Psalm 83, this is all in my book, just so you know. I'm just taking you through a map of what's in my Revelation book. So please buy a copy of my Revelation book so you can understand this stuff for yourself. So when I go and continually commentate on this about once a quarter, you guys are just like, oh, that's right in his book. And you just memorize that. It's going to tell you what's going to happen between now and the end times, okay? You go to Micah 5. This is next step. And this is where we are right now. Israel is calling their operation Operation Rising Lion. Well, this is when Israel is saying they will be like a... This talks about, this starts with Christ. He says he will give them up until the time that she is travailed is brought forth. So this is literally from Christ's first coming to the birth pangs leading to the birth in Revelation 12. This is the midpoint of Daniel's 70th week. Then the remnant of his brethren will return to the children of Israel. That's when Israel comes into the fold of Christ. He will stand and feed in the strength of the Lord and the majesty of the name of the Lord is God, and they shall abide, or they shall remain, for now shall he be great till the ends of the earth. In other words, Christ is going to be preached until he's great to the ends of the earth, and then he's going to come back for Israel. And this man shall be our peace. When the Assyrians shall come into our land, he shall tread in our palaces. Then we shall raise against him 7 shepherds and 8 principal men. Now the Assyrian, I have been talking about this for years. What is the Assyrian? I said I believe it starts with ISIS and expands out towards basically Gog Magog. Okay, if you compare the Assyrian invasion of which, remember, Joel 2 is initially about the Assyrian invasion, and the Assyrian invasion happens in Isaiah and 2 Kings. Okay, if you compare Gog Magog to the Assyrian invasion, they're like a recapitulation of each other. Okay, so think Assyrian. Micah 5 is actually going to be written during the days of Isaiah, around the time when Assyria is attacking. They're contemporary. Okay. And then they said they will lay waste the land of Assyria with the sword. That is Syria. That's the land of Assyria. And the land of Nimrod and the entrances thereof. Okay. So why is he saying when the Assyrians shall come into our land? Because Russia and all the Gog Magog forces are going to come into Syria and from there attack Israel. So when the Assyrian comes to our land, that's all these enemies that are piled into Syria, and headquartered at Damascus, and he shall tread in our palaces. We shall raise against him 7 shepherds and 8 principal men. This is code for the 7 shepherds are 7 kings that are going to be on Israel's side, and one of them is going to be the Antichrist. Okay? Just compare this to Revelation, I believe 18, with the woman where they said there's 7 kings, 5 have fallen, 1 is, and 1 is not yet come. And when he comes, the 7 is going to be one of the 8. Okay? That is a complex prophecy that is talking about 7 historical kings who have ruled over Israel. But in the last days, there's also going to be 10 kings that rule over Israel, but one of them is going to pluck up 3 of them, and that leaves him as the head of the 7. Okay? So there's 2 different things going on in this prophecy. One is the historical 7 kingdoms, and 2 is going to be the 7 kings in the last days. Okay? And the 8th is one of the 7, and he's the Antichrist. Okay? That's complex, but that's all explained in my book. He says, then we shall lay waste the land of Assyria, so there's Syria, and the land of Nimrod, there's Babylon or Iraq, in the entrances thereof. Thus shall he deliver us from the Assyrian when he comes into our land and he treads in our borders. Now the he, a lot of your Bible prophecy experts like Chuck Missler think the he is Christ because the Assyrian is Antichrist. That is not true. The he is the Antichrist because the Assyrian is Gog Magog. Okay? So the he that shall be their peace, first of all, this man is not even in the text, okay? It says, this shall be our peace, semicolon, okay? This is what the Jews are saying in their belief. Remember, you're going to have these prophecies all throughout the Old Testament that is speaking for the Jews in the first person and then speaking for God and then the Messiah and different people in the prophecies, and you need to read them carefully. This man shall be, some translations are going to say, our peace. Okay, so you can dictate whether it's the peace or our peace or whatever based on the inflection of the words. Okay, so this man, this doesn't have to be man because this will be our peace. Okay, in other words, the Jews are going to secure their own peace. That's what this is saying. Okay, semicolon or colon. When the Assyrian shall come in our land, he shall tread in our passes. Then we will raise against him 7 shepherds, even 8 principal men. What are the Jews saying? They're saying we're going to manipulate 7 countries to come to our defense and be a buffer around us to be our peace. And 8 principal men, why? Because one of them is going to be the Antichrist. One of them is going to be the Messiah. The Jews are going to create their own Messiah. A Cyrus type figure, a Gentile who is a messianic type figure. Remember, King Cyrus is called in Isaiah my anointed or my Messiah.
Now, what I find really interesting is I've listened to some of Aaron's videos from a few years ago before I ever even got involved in caring about this subject. And in some of his older videos, he was basically laying out the timeline of what things are going to happen, and we're watching them happen right now. Not because he has some special insight into the future or some word of knowledge. He doesn't have any of that stuff. He has a Bible, and he's rightly dividing the word, and we're just starting to live through some of these things, like Psalm 83 and Micah 5. Please look at those verses. Look at the book of Zechariah, and you're going to see what is happening right now is matching a lot of those obscure prophecies before the big ones that we all kind of are familiar with begin to take place. So
they're saying
we'll keep going.
They're going to make the lands around them flourish like dew from the Lord, like showers on the grass. They're going to make the lands in their immediate surroundings flourish. They're going to build them up. That tarrieth not for man, that or waiteth for the sons of man. The remnant of Jacob shall be among the Gentiles in the midst of many people, as a lion among the beasts of the forest, as a young man lion among the flocks of sheep, who if he goes through both treadeth down and teareth to pieces, and none can deliver. Notice it says, treadeth down and teareth into pieces. Pay attention to this. After this in the night visions, this is Daniel 7, behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth, and devoured and brake into pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet thereof. And it was diverse from the beasts that were before it, because it had 10 horns. And I considered the ram, and behold, there came up another little horn. Remember, the eighth is one of the 7, before whom 3 horns were plucked up. So you have 10 horns, and then a little horn comes up. Remember, the 7th is one of the 8, and plucks up 3. A little horn comes up and plucks up 3 out of the 10. What do you have is 7, and the 8th is one of the 7. So the little horn is one of the 7. The little horn is the image of the beast. You're going to find prophecies about it, how it's given a mouth to speak like a man. You wouldn't say that if it's a man. It's not a man. It's the image of the beast. It's AI. Okay? And it plucks up 3 kings, which leaves 7, who are one of the 8th. What does it do? It devours and breaks into pieces and stamps the residue of it with its feet. How does that compare to what they just said about Israel in Micah 5? They will be like a lion, like a young lion among the flocks of sheep. Now pay attention. Like a lion, like a young lion, okay? So go back to the young lion. Who's a young lion? Behold, these people shall rise up as a great lion and lift himself up as a young lion. He shall not lie down until he eat the prey and drink the blood of the slain. That's a prophecy by Balaam about Israel. A lion and a young lion. Who else is a lion? Well, according to Genesis 49, Judah is a lion's whelp. That's a young lion. That's a lion cub. From the prey, my son, he has gone up, he has stooped down, he has couched like a lion, like an old lion, who shall rouse him up. That's talking about Christ. But who else is a lion's whelp? Deuteronomy 33, and of Dan, Dan is a lion's whelp, a young lion. He shall leap from Bashan. Where is Bashan? Bashan is the Golan Heights, which Israel has now taken over. What is going on here? This is about Christ. This is about Antichrist. So, if Israel, according to Micah 5, if Israel is going to be like a lion and a young lion, who teareth to pieces and none can deliver, remember how it says he's a young lion about the flocks of the sheeps. He both treadeth down and tears into pieces. That's what the 10-horned beast does. Tears down and treads the residue and stamps it with his feet. Thine hand shall be lifted up upon thine adversaries, and all thy adversaries will be cut off. Boy, that sounds like Israel's winning everything, doesn't it? Keep reading. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord, that I will cut off thy horses, and out of the midst of thee I will destroy thy chariots. He's going to destroy Israel's horses and chariots. I will cut off the cities of thy land and throw down thy strongholds. Those are Israel's strongholds. I will cut off the witchcrafts out of thine hands, and you shall have no more soothsayers. That's Israel's witchcrafts and soothsayers he's going to cut off. Thy graven images I will cut off, the image of the beast. And thy standing images out of the midst of thee, the image of the beast. And thou shalt no longer worship the work of thy hands. That's the second half of the tribulation. This is leading up to the tribulation. This is in the tribulation. And I will pluck up the groves out of the midst of these, and I will destroy thy cities. That's the Lord. And I will execute vengeance and anger and fury upon the heathen, such as they have not heard. That's the Lord destroying the armies at Armageddon. Okay? So what's happening? We're in the phase that Israel, they're calling this Operation Rising Lion. When the Assyrian comes into our land, that he is going to be like a lion in the field. They're calling it Operation Rising Lion.
Now, in this next clip, he's going to immediately say, okay, here's where we're at, and with what we're doing in Iran, and from, here till, we get some nuclear war or something, we got a couple, 3 or 4 years. And the reason he's saying that is because there's this foundational understanding of the 1 day for 1,000 years principle that's spoken of by Moses in Psalm 90, by Peter, and that is that we are getting close to the 7,000th year about to begin, 2,000 years after Christ died and went to heaven in 33 AD. So as we get closer to 2033 AD, a lot of these puzzle pieces of eschatology should start forming and coming together. So it's not that we have any kind of right to try to predict anything and say, okay, on this day Jesus is coming back. It's none of that, because Jesus said not to do that. But we ought to be trying to put these pieces together and looking as we get closer until the signs become absolutely, they just become so obvious that we know we're in the end times, the last few years. Now, if we roll into the 2030s and 2033 and 2034 and 35, and man, it's just the same as it's been in the last 50 years, just little conflicts heating up and America going through its ebb and flow of Democrats and Republicans and the economy going up and down, and it's just kind of nothing happening. Well, then all of this watching in this season, well, maybe it's not the right time. But I think that's a big gamble to take, to not pay attention right now. So I would pay attention and not really take this too much with a grain of salt anymore. Be really serious. Maybe these things are starting to come together. And don't go on the rapture prediction bandwagon, because those people do nothing but cause us problems and lull people to sleep. So anyways, here's what else he has to say.
This to go from what we're doing in Iran right now to nuclear war by 2029. 4 years. That's what I expect. I would not advise wanting to live in LA or Seattle. I would not advise that. I would not want to advise living near San Francisco. I would not advise wanting to live near New York, Boston, or New Jersey, or Miami. Any of these big major port cities. Houston, I would not advise wanting to live in any of those. And that is not just me saying this. That is somebody I talked to who is had spent a lot of years in the intelligence community. I would not advise wanting to live in any of these cities by 2029. In fact, I would want to be out by 2027, because this war needs to be prosecuted and over by 2029. This is not me prophesying. This is me predicting. Because 2029 is the 2000th anniversary of the ministry of John the Baptist, and that could be when the two witnesses show up, which means that's after this war. So I would want to be out of those major port cities by 2027. Even if you're not in the blast zone, you're going to be in the refugee zone, and it's going to get rough. Anything between those cities and the countrysides and the mountains behind them, because that's where all these refugees are going to flood to. And they're not going to start out just peacefully asking for help. They're going to be mobs of hungry, scared people. Millions of them moving inland. So the best places to be is between the Rockies and the Appalachians. Those are going to be some of the safest places to be. I expect this by 2029. I don't think anything short of a nuclear exchange between Russia and America is going to get the whole world to lay down their nukes. And I think they're going to lay down their nukes as part of the plan for big AI strategy. Also, this nuclear war is going to probably lead to some kind of electrical grid / internet collapse that turns into a reset of the currency onto some world coin or something like that. I would expect that to happen. But again, Trump, his administration is up in 2028. If we're in World War III, though, that makes the case for Trump staying in office. If he's prosecuting World War III and all the generals and all the commanders who are prosecuting World War III are set up by Trump and they would get changed over if the Democrats took power, I could see that happening. I could also see Trump going for a third term being a pretext for him being assassinated, and the basically Democrats coming into power, suing for peace, and having a massive backlash against the evangelical right for putting Trump into power. I think that's all being set up. So when I say this is close, this is my gut inclination. Okay, I'm not saying I got a word from the Lord on this. I'm saying everything seems to be lining up for 2033, second coming around that time. Around that time, not day or hour, around that time. Okay? And I'm saying we're rolling for it and everything is happening right on schedule to be pulling Israel, pulling everybody in on their side while Gog Magog is happening on their side. When they says that they raise up for themselves 7 kings, I would expect that to be the 7 kingdoms that are going to be on Israel's side in this.
These last couple of clips, Aaron is going to just explain that over the last generation, the boomers, they lived during the 60s and 70s with all the stuff that was happening in Israel, the 6-Day War. They saw all these things and they thought, oh boy, it's coming. The end times is coming. And with all of the previous writings by Schofield and the dispensationalists, everybody at the time really believed, we got the rapture could happen at any time, and then all of this end time stuff will just unfold however it unfolds in those last 7 years, and it could be upon us at any time. The rapture could happen at any time, and we still hear people like that. There's lots of channels, Watchmen channels, and they're just waiting for the rapture every day. And some of them make predictions, and then it doesn't happen because they saw some stars in the sky making alignment, and they think, oh, this is it, and it doesn't happen, and it lulls everybody to sleep. And so because of that, we have a whole generation, like he's about to say here, of people that have not been paying attention, especially amongst our leaders in our churches. And it is the situation that Jesus said would happen. The 10 virgins have fallen asleep. And like Peter said, everybody's going to say, well, where is the sign of his coming? Everything's gone just like it's always gone. So here's
big way. And then the millennials were just taught eschatology doesn't matter, starting with Rick Warren. So we are now in a generation that nobody knows anything about eschatology. They know very little about geopolitics. Their churches are telling them nothing about history and geography or anything. And the people who are interested in this stuff are a bunch of lonely, rejected nerds on the internet like me. That's who's into it. And so we're trying to keep the light flickering so you guys can know, hey, we're approaching the end of the world. We've been approaching the end of the world for quite some time, but it shouldn't be shocking that the devil sends out Chicken Little to say the sky is falling nonstop leading up to Daniel's 70th week. So that by the time we get to Daniel's 70th week, nobody believes we're in the end times. Everyone's a techno-optimist or a future optimist or an optimistic eschatologist. So you have your Christian nationalists, and essentially these are your Reformed Baptists. Remember, there were no Reformed Baptists in 1969 in America. There were none. There were some in England, but they were a small sect. And then they formed in 1970. And since then, they have been preaching this partial preterist eschatology that says there's no eschatological predictions in the Bible. That's essentially what they're saying. That is now bled over into the Baptists and the non-denominational churches, which my pastor is one of them, saying the mark of the beast is not a real thing, and there's no predictive prophecy in the book of Revelation or Ezekiel. There's nothing in there that's predicting the future. That's what they're saying. They're saying this is just ideological, metaphorical stuff. So they're getting all their hermeneutics from the preterists while claiming to be futurists. They're denying all predictive ability out of prophecy. That's my church going into. I can tell you it's one of the fastest growing churches in the Phoenix area. This is what it is. And Rick Warren created that. Don't pay attention to eschatology. Jesus said that's none of your business. That's a lie. That's not what Jesus said. He gave you a bunch of signs and said, watch for these things. And his apostles also gave you signs and said, watch for these things. And the prophets before them gave you all these signs and said, this is what's going to happen. Prophecies predict the future. Now the stuff is happening, and for a variety of different reasons, nobody's paying attention to
Well,
it.
there you have it. Most people aren't paying attention, and it's just like it was the first time Jesus came. Who was paying attention? Some old man and this old lady who worked in the temple, they were paying attention. Some astrologers over in Persia or Iraq or wherever they lived were paying attention to the stars, reading some old prophets of Daniel and some of that, and doing calculations, and went, "Hey, I think something's happening." The wise men, and that's it. I mean, there was others who were having messianic anticipation, but nobody was really watching and really looking. And when Jesus showed up, even with all the signs and miracles, they still were not really convinced. And I think it's just a repeat. I mean, prophecy is just a repeat of patterns. And we're going to see a similarity of the last days where all these prophecies in Ezekiel are going to be fulfilled, and things are going to be happening right up to the birth pangs. And Christians are still going to be going, no, that's not it. And it's going to take like the abomination of desolation to happen on live TV for some Christians to finally wake up and go, oh my gosh, what's going on? And then they're going to go try to find some oil to put in their lamps, right? So let's not be those people. Let's start looking right now and just not being hysterical about it. I hope I'm not being hysterical about it. I'm excited about it. I'm excited that all these things are happening in my lifetime. And if I'm wrong about it, then what have I lost? As long as I'm not predicting the day Jesus is coming back and predicting the rapture, I haven't lost my credibility. I haven't lost my joy. I'll just, I won't really have anything to lose, except, and the only thing I've gained is just more understanding of the scriptures and the prophecies that I ignored all these years. So I encourage you to do the same thing. Dig into this stuff, and don't try to exegete every single news clip. Not everything is that important, but stuff like October 7th, 2022, that was pretty important. Perhaps Operation Rising Lion on Friday the 13th last week, that's pretty important. And there's just going to be some things that are going to be kind of more important than others. So God bless you guys. And I got another video coming up. I want to answer some ideas about the all-millennialists and those who do not believe in Israel having any significance for the end times. They are some of the biggest deceivers, whether they know it or not, whether they mean to be that or not. There's one in particular who said some pretty outrageous things a couple of days ago on his podcast, and I'm going to break down some of that, and I want to answer that. So look for that coming up next, okay? And then we'll get right back into Revelation. I think 14 is where we're at. So I got a few things coming down the pipeline. So I'll see you then. Bye.